Kלים Perek Zayin Mishnah Gimel, we move on. Mishnah starts off with a relatively simple din. Kira shenech lekola orka tahira. Remember, the kira is like an oval-shaped type of stove. One puts in it 2 kederis. Room for 2 kederis. Try and show you a picture here, the top. The orka means that the kira is now split down its length. So now, on each broken half, you can't put any kedera. Because imagine the kira is like this, and you split it this way, so each half is long, it doesn't go round. So you can't balance a kedera at all. It's split the wrong way. So therefore now the kira is broken. Tahira, of course it's tahir. However, the rochba tamea, if you split the kira this way, so you've got your oval shape on which you can put 2 kederas, and you split it down the middle, so each broken section could still be used to place 1 kedera on it. You can still make your fire. Because you've got roiv hekuf, you've got the majority of the circumference intact, and you can still balance a kedera, 1 kedera on each broken section. Therefore, each section is tomei. However, a kupach is a much smaller. It hasn't got room for 2 kederas. It's circular, and it's just made for 1 kedera. It's a stove for 1 pot. So of course here, shenechlak, if it's split bein orko, bein rochba, in any direction, it's tar because the kupach is completely useless. Okay, now we move on to a slightly more complicated din. Chatzar hakira. This is a bit similar to the previous Mishnah when we're dealing with the dochen. The dochen was a tray built onto the side of the stove, onto which one placed the pot to cool down. And we said the dochen has a completely separate tashmish from the kira, and if one becomes tomei, the other one remains tahor. However, the chotzer hakira is a sort of tray onto which the kira is built. The kira is built in the middle of this tray. And this is a picture here. So the tray encircles the stove. The stove sits in the tray. The purpose of the tray is not very clear. However, it's much more of a tashmish of the cooking of the stove than the dochen was. The dochen was, once you finished your cooking, you then take the pots, put it on the tray to cool down. The chotzer of the kira is actually used is part of the cooking. Either because stuff spills over and it catches the food, or because that's where you prepare the stove, the coal, the wood, the matches, the fire of the stove is all prepared in the chotzer. Not quite sure what the chotzer actually is used for. However, one thing is for sure. The Tana holds that the chotzer of the kira is part of the tashmish of the cooking of the stove itself. And therefore, says the Mishnah, Bismanchi gevoya sholosh etzbois. Remember, sholosh etzbois is the normal shear for the height of a kira, as we learned at the beginning of Perek. Hey, the shear for a kira is sholosh etzbois. If the chotzer has the same shear of sholosh etzbois, then it's considered to be able, its tashmish fuses into the tashmish of the stove, and it's 1 tashmish, and therefore it becomes 1 kli. Therefore, says the Mishnah, metamo b'maga uva'avir. This is an expression used whenever you have 2 parts to a kli, and we're trying to denote a chibur da'iraisa. We use the expression metamo b'maga uva'avir. That means it doesn't make a difference whether the stove becomes tomei through avir, or the stove becomes tomei through maga, whether the sheretz was just hung into the airspace of the kira, or the sheretz actually touched it from the inside, of course. In all cases, the chotzer becomes tomei with the stove, and vice versa. The stove, the chotzer itself, can also be makabel tuma through maga and avir, and when it does, the kira becomes tomei with it because you have a proper chibur deraisa. This din, it actually makes no difference to this din. Once we have our height of shalosh etzbois for the chotzer, it doesn't make a difference whether the chotzer and the kira are actually stuck together, or even if they're not stuck together. They're just what's called mufresh, as we'll see in the next Mishnah. One's just sitting on top of the other, but they are one kli, and therefore the rule is if one becomes tomei, the other one becomes tomei too, and it doesn't make a difference whether that tomei is done through maga or avir. That's simple. But now we come to a case of pechusimikan. The chotzer doesn't have the required 3 etzbois height, and therefore midoraisa, it's not part of the tanur. It's not part of the kira, sorry. So then we make this chilek. We've had this expression before. Metama b'maga, ve'eno metama ba'avir, which means that there are different ways of learning this expression. I'm going to say the simplest expression. This is actually second pshat in Bartanura. The simplest way of learning this Mishnah is that now the chotzer is not part of the tashmish of the kira, and therefore only has a din of yodos. And the din of a yad of a klicheres is, although the yad may have a physical airspace, it may have a toich, its toich is not important. And therefore if you were to hang a sheretz, suspend a sheretz in its toich, the yad isn't able to be makabel tumah through its avir. Only if the klicheres is already tomei, then the yad has a din of the back of a klicheres, and then any oichlenu mashkin that touch a gav klicheres, or that touches the yad of a klicheres, becomes tomei by picking up tumah from the klicheres with maga. And that's what it means here. B'chusimikan, if the chotzer is not 3 tfachim high, it's metama b'maga, it is only able to be metame ochlenu mashkin that touch it. Ve'eno mitama'or, and similarly ve'eno mitama'or ba'aver, it does not receive or metame other things through its aver at all. That's the simplest way of learning this Mishnah. Now we're going back to the first case, where the chotzer has got the required height of 3 etzbois. It is part of the stove. So we have the stove in the middle, and sitting in this tray in the chotzer. And we said that now the chotzer and the stove itself are able to be makabel tumah through avir, wherever the sheretz is suspended, either in the toich of the inside kli or in the toich of the chotzer, the whole lot becomes tomei together. But this Mishnah is assuming that when we're looking at the avir of the chotzer on the outside, it's not just the avir which is inside the tray. In fact, it's the avir also above the tray on the side of the kira. And the Mishnah is saying, Keitzad Meshar in Oisa, how do we measure this avir? We've got 2 heights. We've got a lower tray and a higher kira in the middle. Says the Mishnah, Rabbi Shmuel Omer. Now, this is an unusual din. The Chazon Ish actually says he doesn't know, we don't find this anywhere else in the Masechta, that one can extend the avir of a keli to outside the space confined by the walls. But the Rabbi Shmuel says, Noisines hashpud milmalon lematon. You take a metal rod, the shpud, and you place it on the wall of the chotzer, leaning on the top, on the rim of the stove, at an angle. So you have a triangle of avir, whose borders are the shpud, the wall of the stove, and the edge and the rim of the chotzer. And this triangle of air is called the avir of the whole kira. And if you put a sheretz in that triangle of air, that's called being inside the toich of the klicheres. Uchanegdo, anywhere beneath that shpud, metama ba'avir, is able to be metame the whole contraption ba'avir. And the Mishnah carries on with the last din, which is again a din unfortunately not explained by the Mefarshim. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, nitmo hakira, nitmes hachotzer. Nitmo hachotzer, lo nitmes hakira. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov is actually following the shit of Rabbi Shimon in the Tosefta. He is not being mechalik with the chotzer being 3 etzba'is high, not 3 etzba'is high. He said we have a one-directional ikar and tofel relationship between the stove and the chotzer. We don't find this elsewhere, which is that if the kira becomes tomei because the sheretz was suspended in its toich, then the chotzer follows suit, and the chotzer just becomes bottled to the kira and becomes tomei with it. However, nitmei chotzer, if the sheretz is hung in the chotzer, then a nitmei kira, that does not allow the stove to become tomei with it. It's the stove which schleps the tofel of the chotzer with it, and not the other way around. Again, I'm afraid I cannot expand more on this. I've tried to understand where this din comes from. It's difficult. This is Shita Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov.